Chair, and I heard a number of concerns about financing, about funding streams from the federal level. Over 40% of EPA's budget is typically passed through the agency to the states to make their work possible. And according to EPA, 75% of that volume of its state cleanup grants and 80% of its state prevention grants support the salaries of state staff. So that could mean huge cuts and losses at your important state agency level. Ms. Pillsbury, you represent the state officials trying to provide all of our constituents with safe drinking water. You held up a great visual. According to EPA, if the sequester goes into effect, more than 100 water quality protection and restoration projects would be eliminated. What does that mean from your perspective in trying to provide safe drinking water?
Well, the Safe Drinking Water Act is really structured to be a multi-barrier approach to safe drinking water. So, you start with the source, the treatment, the distribution system, and then monitoring and getting information out there. That source piece of it, making sure that the water is clean to begin with, is really critical. Trying to treat it at the public water systems is very difficult, sometimes impossible, oftentimes very expensive. So we like those Clean Water Act, and there's actually work in progress between Groundwater Protection Council, ASDOR, Association of State Drinking Water Administrators, and the Association of Clean Water Administrators to look at what tools can be brought to bear under the Clean Water Act to protect the sources being used by public drinking waters.
And Ms. Marks, you represent the state officials who work every day to address cleanup of contaminated sites. If this sequester again goes forward, we're told that nearly 300 contaminated, leaking underground storage tanks would not be cleaned up. Nearly 600 contaminated properties would not get cleaned up under the voluntary cleanup program. What does that mean to the work that is assigned you and your colleagues?
Well, the federal dollars that come in to do cleanups are absolutely vital, and it would be devastating to our programs to lose that assistance. Certainly the states provide a certain amount of that funding, but the federal funding is actually integral to getting those sites cleaned up.
And Ms. Harrison, as a state legislator, you have to deal with state budgetary issues every year. I served for 25 years in state government in New York. I know the struggles states are facing. Are the states prepared to step in and make up for any loss of funding if that should be the result here from Washington?
The short answer is no, sir. I think we've made significant cuts to our department budgets already, and we've actually replaced a lot of the state funding with federal funding and moved positions into federally funded positions. So I think any cuts would be devastating to our ability to protect the public health of our citizens.
And Mayor Sesma, you represent cities across the country. Can our cities absorb these costs if federal funding is cut significantly? And what plans would perhaps states make to respond to the shortfall?
Intergovernmental revenue from state and federal governments have caused other stresses on local budgets. It either means an increase in local taxes or an increase in fees or new fees, or projects don't get done. Or they don't even get planned. So one of the big asks of the NLC is to continue to support the financing mechanisms that exist and ask the federal government, Congress, to consider new or additional creative mechanisms that allow us to begin to deal with this infrastructure, not just the new infrastructure, but maintaining an existing infrastructure that's becoming obsolete and inefficient.
Thank you. It becomes clear to me that this panel is working hard every day to implement our environmental laws and doing a commendable job, but sequestration is an imminent threat. If these important programs survive sequestration, the budget here, Ryan budget, threatens to cut federal funding even more drastically. One of today's witnesses has suggested that the members of this subcommittee write to the Appropriations Committee and urge them to ensure adequate funding for these programs. I think that's a great idea, and I'd like to pledge to work with our outstanding chair to convey that message to the appropriators. I hope that we can work together and make sure that we don't sacrifice public health and environment with ill-considered budget cuts. So thank you for your advocacy and your advice.